Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today I want to talk about the Sony A7R Mark VI. I just received this camera, it is still in the box. I don't do sponsored reviews or anything like that, so I have to wait until the camera is commercially available before I can review it. And I believe this is one of the first batches that was released, and I just got it. So let's start with opening the box and see what's in the box. And I also have the older A7R Mark V, so we can compare the two and see what differences there are. Okay, let's start with the box. The box is kind of like a cardboard box similar to the A1 Mark II. There's nothing exciting about it. Basically inside, let's see what's in there. There's got a bunch of paperwork, which I never use, so we can just put them aside. And here's the camera. It's in a plastic-free packaging. That's good, so there are no plastics here. It's this kind of soft material where what they use to store the camera. And here's the actual A7R Mark VI body. Let's compare it with the A7R Mark V. First thing is that they're actually pretty similar. It's not anything like a day and night difference between them, as you would expect. The Mark VI has a little bit of a little bit deeper grip. But otherwise it's pretty similar to the Mark V. I do have like a leather half case for my Mark V, so this makes it a little bit deeper and easier to handle. This one I just got it, so I don't have any leather case or anything like that, but it feels good. One thing I noticed is this little button here with the lamp icon on it. This is for the backlight buttons. And other than that, I would say they're pretty much identical. Compared to the A1 series is that there's only one programmable button up here instead of two, and there's no programmable button on the front, and there's also no dial on the left hand side. On the A1 series or A9 Mark III, there's a dial here where you can choose the continuous shooting speed and a bunch of other things. These guys don't have it, so that is one distinction between the top of the line Pro A1 series and the lower end A7 series. Is like the body is basically simpler. One difference between the new A7R Mark VI and the Mark V is the battery pack they take. The Mark V takes the standard Sony battery pack that the FZ100. That's been the standard battery for all the Sony cameras, A7 series, A1 series, and A9 series for almost a decade now. And basically this is a 2280 milliampere hour battery pack. The new one is 2670 milliampere hour, so it's an increase in capacity, and it's not that much bigger. It's basically about the same length and same width, but it's a little bit deeper, and it has different kind of contacts, so they're not compatible at all. There's no way you can swap these batteries. This is a completely different form factor, and obviously it needs a different charger, which should come with the camera. So if we go in the box, there is a charger here, and the nice thing is that it now comes with a dual charger. So any kind of pro or semi-pro camera, in my opinion, should come with a dual charger, because you're not gonna want to deal with one battery. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, so let's go ahead and mount the lens. I got a small lens here, the 85-1.4. Let's mount it on the new camera. And one of the first things I do when I receive a new body is that I go to the settings and I activate the shutter close after power off, the mechanical shutter. What that does is that it will close the mechanical shutter when you turn off the camera, so the sensor is not exposed. And this is a great feature on Sony cameras that prevents dust and debris to get on the sensor after you turn it off. When you want to swap lenses, you don't want the sensor to be exposed, because there's always some dust or some debris or stuff like that in the air that might land on your sensor, and then you have to clean it later, which is a pain. So the first thing I do, I go and turn on the function that closes the mechanical shutter after you turn off, as you can see on the screen, and I recommend that you do the same with your new camera as soon as you get it. So handling and feeling, obviously it feels good. So did the old one. It's got pretty good weight balance, not that much different from the old one, so there's no surprises there. One difference that I noticed right off the bat with the A7 Mark VI is the A7R Mark VI is the viewfinder is a lot brighter than the A7R Mark V, especially in high contrast situations. It's easier to see because of HDR support. And the other thing that I'm happy to report is that the A7R Mark VI seems to have finally solved one of the issues with the Sony viewfinders. So the Sony viewfinders are pretty high quality, highest resolution on the market. But one drawback is that when you half press the shutter button to engage continuous autofocus, the resolution drops. So you can see aliasing and artifacts in the finder when you're half pressing the shutter speed. And that has been the case pretty much with all the cameras prior to this one. A1, A1 Mark II, A9 Mark III, and A7R Mark V as well. So the finder is pretty crisp, and then as soon as you engage the continuous focus, you will see the image quality will degrade a little bit. This is the first one which doesn't have this issue. So I tried both standard frame rate and then the high frame rate. By the way, I can't tell the image quality difference between the two of them. Just like the A1 Mark II, the high setting, high frame rate on the viewfinder is just as good as the standard. If there are differences, it's really hard to tell. And then on top of that, when you half press the shutter button to engage the continuous focus, the image quality and the resolution does not drop at all. It seems like pretty high, pretty crisp and great quality. So this is pretty good improvement over the A7R Mark V and even the A1 series, is that when you half press the shutter, there's no degradation, there's no aliasing in the viewfinder, nothing like that. So that's pretty good. And of course the viewfinder on this one is blackout free when you use the electronic shutter, so it has the same experience as the A1 series or the A9 Mark II and Mark III series, which is pretty nice for following action. With the A7R Mark V, it's pretty much don't want to say impossible, but it's very difficult to pan with a subject and engage the continuous shooting. For example, panning with a long lens with a flying bird is something that is very difficult to do with this, even for very experienced photographers. The viewfinder is not real time, and if the bird is going fast, it's just showing a slideshow of the previous captures, so you're gonna lose it and like overshoot and undershoot, like you don't know where the bird is. So it's just not suitable for that application. It's not that it's just a little bit worse than the A1, it's just pretty bad for that kind of usage. So I would say this one is really not intended for that and cannot do that. But this one is very similar to the A1 series or A9 Mark III in terms of blackout free experience when you're following a fast moving subject, panning with it. In terms of the autofocus settings and configuration, this camera is pretty much like the A1 Mark II. It has the same settings and configuration, so I set them up the same way. If you want to see how I set up my cameras for bird in flight, you can take a look at my guide where I explain how I configure each of the autofocus settings and the reasoning behind that. But for practical purposes, it has the same settings. I have to test in the field to see whether the performance is also similar or comparable to the A1 Mark II, but in terms of configuration and settings, it has the same features. Many of you want to know if this camera is as good as A1 Mark II when it comes to photographing subjects like birds in flight. And the answer to that basically boils down to two bullet points. Whether the readout speed for this camera is good enough for photographing birds in flight with long focal lengths, because often you're panning at 600, 800, 1200 millimeters, so the angular velocity is really high. And if the readout speed is not fast enough, you're going to see distortions and artifacts in the background, as well as if the birds are flapping really fast, some like a hummingbird, you will see distortions there too. So that's the first thing that is important. The second one is the autofocus performance. It has all the configurations and the settings and the flexibility as the A1 Mark II, but is the performance the same or not? These are the two key questions that we need to answer. As far as the readout speed is concerned, I went ahead and measured the readout speed for these three cameras using a high-speed LED and a pulse generator. So I generate an optical waveform and I capture it with the three cameras, and then from there I can measure the readout speed. Keep in mind that the readout speed may depend on some factors such as temperature, but all three of them were measured in the same condition in room temperature. Readout speed for the A1 Mark II is less than 4 milliseconds. For the A7R Mark V is about 94 milliseconds, so very, very slow. And for A7R6, it depends on the RAW configuration. If you set it to RAW, as in lossless compressed or high quality compressed RAW, it's about 20 milliseconds. So it's still 5 times slower than the A1 Mark II. If you set it to lossy compressed RAW, which is what most people will do if they want to shoot at 30 frames a second, then it drops to 14 milliseconds. So it's still about 3.5 times slower than the A1 Mark II. So this 14 milliseconds readout time, which is the fastest this camera can achieve, whether it's going to be a problem or not in the field is something that I have to test. My main concern again is panning at very long focal lengths where the angular velocity is really high and getting distortions in the background. For example, vertical lines such as trees or foliage may look slanted or tilted, or in case where you're photographing a bird that is flapping really fast, maybe some like a hummingbird, you may see wing distortions. Whether that happens and the frequency of that is really the determining factor whether this is going to be a camera that I would recommend for birds in flight or not. And that is something that I have to test out in the field and see whether those distortions in practice happen in some corner cases or rather infrequently, or it's pretty likely to get them when you're shooting at very long focal lengths, especially when panning. So stay tuned for that. I will test that out and I'll let you know what I think. And the other thing is autofocus. As I mentioned, I have to evaluate the performance in the field to basically figure out whether this is as good as the A1 Mark II or not. On paper, the processing power, the number of calculations per second that this one is capable of is not the same as the A1 Mark II. It's half as much as that. So that could be a factor where the autofocus performance is not quite the same. So far, I really like this camera. In particular, I like the viewfinder. It's brighter and the quality doesn't drop when you engage the continuous focus. It has blackout free finder experience, and it also shoots at 30 frames a second with electronic shutter. So there is a big improvement compared to the A7R V. So A7R V is a camera that I would say it will struggle at capturing action. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult to capture action with this one. It's not ideal. It's not designed for that. It's not the right tool for that. This one, you can definitely shoot action with this. And for those who want to do that, it's a worthy upgrade to the A7R V. And the pricing on this one is actually pretty reasonable in my opinion. Obviously, it's not cheap, but compared to the price of the A7R V when it came out a few years ago with inflation and all that, you're getting a much better camera, much higher technology for almost the same price when you factor in inflation. So price is good too. Compared to the A1 and A1 Mark II, obviously this is not going to be as fast as those. This is not going to be a substitute for those cameras for folks who already have an A1 series. If you see or read online that this is an A1 killer or anything like that, that's not true, obviously. That's just hype. The readout speed on this one is not as fast as the A1 as I measured. And then I think the autofocus performance of this is also not going to be quite the same as the A1 Mark II. Maybe pretty close, but probably not quite the same. But I have to test that in the field to see how much difference there is. And then again, like whether the readout speed is going to be an issue in practice or not remains to be seen. But if it turns out that it's not an issue for most cases, then this could be an alternative for folks who really want to have an A1 series camera, but it's too much money for them right now. There is a big difference, obviously, 7,000 versus 4,500. So that's a significant difference. So whether that difference is worth it for you or not, if you want to photograph birds in flight, it really depends on how much that readout speed will cause issues in practice, which I will take a look at when I use this in the field. I have to take my time. I don't want to rush to a conclusion or anything. I have to shoot under different conditions, different subjects, to get a feel of whether that's an issue or not. And that will basically determine the rating of this camera for something like birds in flight. But generally speaking, so far it's a pretty good camera, great improvement compared to the A7R V. And with that, I'll end it here. Stay tuned for the actual review of this camera. Thank you.